Hey everybody, this is Eric Pierce. Welcome to All the Fanfare. I'm joined today by my good friend Sheila Moeschen, and we're going to be talking about a show near and dear to both of us, The Penguin. Sheila, thanks for coming on the podcast again. This is your third time, I believe.
Third time's the charm or the curse. I don't know. You decide.
It's a blessing. Before we get in, go
yeah,
ahead. Go ahead.
yeah. No, I'm super excited to be having this conversation with you. We've had some back and forth on notes and elsewhere. When this series dropped, I think both of us were just sucked in, and there's a lot to talk about. So
There absolutely is.
I'm excited to be here.
Yes. I'm excited because Sheila and I have been talking about, full disclosure, we've been talking about recording this episode for a while, basically since the show ended, because we're like, oh my gosh, we have to talk about this show. We both had some scheduling issues. So this is why we're talking about it in December versus when the show ended. But the bonus to that is if you haven't seen the show by now, like you have no one to blame but yourself, because you've had plenty of time. And the reason I say that is because we're going to spoil the heck out of this. So like, I know at Thanksgiving, my parents told me they picked up HBO, or they're going to pick up HBO in January because they're tired of me talking about the Penguin, I guess. And maybe they think if they have HBO, I'll stop talking about this show.
No.
Mom, Scott, wrong. That's not going to happen. But I do want to say we're going to spoil the heck out of the show. So don't listen. I know you listen to every episode. Don't listen to this episode. If you haven't seen the show and you're going to see the show, don't listen to this episode, because there's lots of interesting and amazing things that happen in the show, and we're going to talk about all of them, and it's going to ruin your experience if you listen to us talk about them. So see the show first.
And if you've kind of been like, oh yeah, that show, like I'll sort of get to it, like bump it up high on the list immediately.
Yes.
Like Elf is going to be there for a few more weeks. Don't worry about it. You probably have it on Blu-ray anyway.
Absolutely.
Get yourself some dark Penguin. Sail into the holidays. You'll thank us for it.
Absolutely. Yes. This is, I mean, I've said several times, I think kind of flippantly, that this is the best show on TV. And I say it flippantly because, I can't exactly keep up with everything that's on TV. I kind of know what's available. I know the big names, and of all the shows I've seen this year, this is the best show. This is the best show I've seen this year. I'll just say it that way. And I think one of the the question I want to start with, Sheila, and I think I know your answer, I know mine, but is this the greatest villain origin story that we've ever gotten?
I think it is. Short answer, I think it really is, especially for handling like the comic book kind of world, right? Because it's really easy, I think, to make that shallow or one-dimensional or something, right? Because because of the nature of the genre, they're already like big baddies and all of the like the funniest stereotypes, like Dr. Evil from Austin Powers and stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's lampooning, and so it's very easy to just sort of coast on that. But the Penguin gives us something that is so much different and so layered and so like really grounded in a real person, a real psychology, a real pathology. I mean, the only thing that is comic booky, and it's not even really, is his appearance. But even that, they've just sort of made him like real banged up.
Yeah.
This is definitely not a Danny DeVito, like half animal, half human kind of situation. Like, this is somebody who almost immediately garners your sympathies because of his physicality, because he's got like deep scars, he's got like his face is kind of pockmarked, so he's just it's rough, right? And then and he walks with a limp, so there's something going on there, and so immediately you're like outcast, outsider, we know how cruel regular world is to those kinds of people. So putting it in the world of Gotham, you're like, okay, he's had it rough, so immediately you sort of, your heart goes out to him, I think, a bit. And then I think the show just takes that and twists it up so badly. And Eric and I have talked a bit about some parallels between his character and the Sopranos and stuff. But I want to say that I feel like it goes a step further than even what the Sopranos were doing with Tony's pathology and his manipulations and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think this takes it to a far deeper, more complicated level. Um, so yeah, so out of the gate, it is not a straightforward like I'm bad because. I think
Mm-hmm.
that fill in the blanks of that is super super layered, and that's part of I think what the first season explores. So what do you yeah, I mean how do you speak to that, Eric? Like
Yeah, there's kind of this inverse curve with hype. I found that a lot of times the more excited I am about something, the better that thing needs to be in order for me to like it. And then the inverse is, if I'm not excited about something, if my expectations of it are low going in, it doesn't have to be as good for me to like be like, oh, that was good, you know. The Penguin is one of those characters, like we've had him forever, and so the first Penguin I ever knew was the one from the Batman TV series, he was a caricature, he was a joke character, and then we had the grotesque Danny DeVito character who he was sort of sympathetic, but was more just like man, that guy is, there's something wrong with him, he's kind of hideous, you don't want to even look at him.
Mhm.
But with the Penguin series and Colin Farrell's work there, he's so sympathetic that even when you see everything he does in this show, I still maintain somewhat sympathetic towards him because he's so very real, very human, and and for me, that's a lot of the reason why I think this is the greatest villain origin story, because in spite of everything he does that's villainous and some of the choices he makes in the show, I still actually like this character. But he is a villain, and there's no question. He's not an anti-hero. He's not in the gray. Like, the show does a good job, because at the beginning you could say, he's a gray character. He's going to do good things and bad things, because like he's human, and the show starts there. But then as the show progresses, and he, in the course of the story, he does some things from which you can't come back. And the final episode specifically, he has the two huge betrayals that are going to define his character forever after, and those are the moments that turn him into an actual villain, in my opinion, versus a sympathetic character or someone that you can still root for.
Mhm.
um and so for me, this is why this show is so good, is because it's taken this character who is, every other iteration I've seen of him has been at least 50% joke, and it's made him into a person and someone who I would actually be scared of, versus the iterations we had before. um and it makes me excited for what's going to come next, a season 2 or the Batman part 2 or whatever we see this character in again. It's very exciting, because this feels sort of like uncharted territory. For all the years we've had these adaptations, I
Mhm.
don't think we've had such time with a character to really get to know them. And it's yeah, I'm just excited for the future, I guess, because I think this is, you're talking about the Sopranos, and that's a high bar, that's a high quality show to compare the Penguin to. And I think the overlap or the comparisons are valid in a lot of ways, but at the same time, I think this show is so successful because it makes Oswald Cobb even more villainous and more dastardly than Tony Soprano. Like, this guy
Mhm.
is a villain. He's a super villain, and he's still on his at the end, as the way the show ends, he hasn't even like reached like the Penguin status. Like, he's at the penthouse, but like, I haven't seen him do any of the stuff that I would associate with a Batman supervillain yet. So presumably that stuff's coming. It's only going to get worse from here. But I
Mhm.
think what's masterful for me about this show is how it takes what we know about this character. We know that he's going to become the Penguin. Like, that's the whole point of the show, is the origin story. It
Right.
takes what we know about the character, and it just invests him with all this pathos, and these conflicting feelings where, again, I feel sympathetic towards him, even though he's all kinds of messed up. What I love about the show is how it plays with our perceptions of how is he a villain, or when does he become the villain?
Mm.
And I feel like the answer is he's actually been a villain this whole time. He's just really, really good at making you feel for him and see the world from his perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'm gonna throw it back to you. Like, what was we talk about his villainy? Like, when was the moment you realized, like, okay, this guy is actually really messed up, and I'm just buying into what he's putting out in the world. I'm being manipulated because that is his superpowers, manipulating people. Like,
Yeah.
when for you did you step back and say, okay, this guy is actually really bad, and and I feel conflicted about how I feel for him.
Well, I think a glimpse where I was like, uh-oh. Like, oh, I should be careful about feeling like he could be an anti-hero, feeling like okay, because so in like the first episode, he talks about this tells a story about this old gangster from the
Yes.
neighborhood who
Yep.
was super beloved, and when they and he knew, and the gangster like looked out for everybody in the neighborhood, so he's one of those old time kind of, like a Bronx Tale, like I'll do you favors, but you're gonna owe him favors, and kind of that weird, but like weirdly beloved, right? Because he kept people
Mm-hmm.
safe. Oswald is like, if you needed something, he got it for you. So he tells it with a lot of reverence, and he feels like, and he kind of says like they threw a parade in his honor. Can you imagine being loved like that or whatever? So that it won me kind of immediately, because I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, he wants to sort of not use his evil for good at all,
Yeah.
but he's gonna look after like the outcasts and the lesser thans and the people he identifies with, right? So like I'm feeling better about, or like okayish. And then I think it's actually in the same when he, I don't know if it's the first episode or the second episode, but when he basically like he comes upon Vic stealing his hubcaps and all of that, and then when he makes I'm sorry, I'm not remembering it so specifically, but like he makes him do something, I forget. It's not even when he makes him deliver the gangster's body. Now I'm forgetting the characters'
Is it?
names.
Are you saying when he makes him drive the car?
Yeah. Yeah. He makes him drive the car, and he's got like the gun on him, and
Yep.
when he's all like, you do anything, you say anything, like I'll gut you like a fish.
Yep.
And then he's sort of, and then so it's that scene. And then he's like, you like the air, he talks about the air
Yes.
like that immediately, where I was like, uh-oh. And that wasn't even like, that's not even the worst of anything he does in this season, but that is what tipped me to like what is going on, like we cannot, not only can we not trust him, but we really have no idea where he's coming from, and like what game is he playing here,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you um and that's also when I was like, how much psychosis are we seeing here, you
Yeah.
know um so I think that was at least the start of it. And then I started almost holding my breath every episode to episode to because I was anticipating like how how much more like psychotic, because those are the characters that really make me very, very anxious in any show. It's like Reservoir Dogs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
Tarantino's, where they're like not normal, but they're like almost like, oh, you almost have them figured out, and then they do something that is so left turn.
Yep.
That scares me. And that's what that's what he like. That is sort of what he is a pattern he sets up that we start to see, and that's when I was like, this thing is like this character is so bad. I don't know if he knows the depths of his own depravity.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's a good central question, because I do think there is an element of how much is Oz playing the game. He's just trying to, get the prestige that he feels is due, like the good life that he wants for himself and his mom, versus how much is this actually him, and does he know the difference? And because a lot of times, when he talks, there's a scene where, I think it's the end of the third episode, when him and Sophia are outside the bar. They just concluded the deal with the triads,
Mm-hmm.
and they're kind of celebrating because it looks like they're on the up, like they're gonna take over the Falcone family together, and things are gonna work out. And you
Mm-hmm.
actually forget at that point, you actually forget that he's been undermining Sophia and the Falcones this whole time until the other family, the Maronis, show up. But
Yep.
before that happens, they have this beautiful little moment where they connect, and he actually gets teary eyed about what happened to Sophia, because he told her father that she talked to the reporter, and you so buy into that moment, and she's moved by it, and so are you, because he feels so genuine in that moment, and he's able to connect to her. But when you step back and you think about everything you learn about him from this show, like, that has to be an act. Like, he is such he is such a sociopath that he is able to mimic emotions in order to get what he wants in any given moment. And so manipulation sometimes does mean tearing up and saying the right thing. Even Sophia says to him at one point, like, you always know the exact thing to say, and he
Mm-hmm.
always does know the exact thing to say. And on one hand, you're like, okay, he's like, no one could be that good. Like, he has to be genuine on some level. But no, I think he really is that good at manipulating people and pushing the right buttons to get where he wants to be. And it's that scene still sticks with me to this day, because it is such a beautiful moment of these two people connecting, and like there's this forgiveness that's happening in that moment, but it's actually it's not genuine. Like, he's telling her whatever he needs to say, and then 2 seconds later, he's telling Vic to leave, because just Vic's like, where's Sophia, whatever, because he crashes the party, and he's like,
Mm-hmm.
just forget her, leave, like, because she means nothing to him. Like, nobody means anything to this guy, up to and including his mother in the end. So it's there's yeah, it's to your point about, like, really, like, what is really scary in real life. It's the left turns you don't seem coming, where you think you know someone and they act in a way that's completely out of what you thought they would or could do. And that, to me, is more real life than just a cackling Dr. Evil type villain who just wants to rule for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this guy has this void inside of him that he was born with, apparently. And
Well, yeah. So yeah, I have two questions.
yeah.
Well, one is I want to talk about, are monsters born or made, for like
Yes. Yep.
that whole thing, because
Yep.
Sophia is in that mix too.
Yes. Yep.
And but the first question I have for you is like, were you also watching and sort of waiting slash hoping for like Victor or his girlfriend or maybe Sophia, or like just for somebody to sort of not change him but affect him? Like I really
Yeah.
thought, I was stupid enough to think that, like, not that he and Victor were gonna, like, like, sort of ride off into the sunset without complications,
Mm-hmm.
but I really felt like Victor was gonna stick around at least another season, because I thought it would be so interesting to see how he evolved in that organization, because Victor is a character that is a sweet boy. So he's a
Yeah.
sweet young boy, and he does have a lot of moral, um like, he has higher moral standing, but he also has been through catastrophe and sees the, like, the inequalities of Gotham, and and all of that and everything. So he also sort of comes on board to like, we do what we need to do, we take what's ours, kind of thing. But anyway, so I thought, if Victor becomes more entrenched in the Penguin organization, like, how is, are we going to see him become like an anti-hero or whatever kind of thing? So, but anyway, I thought that relationship and that dynamic, I thought, how is Victor going to impact possibly
Mm-hmm.
Oz? Like, is there something about Victor's, not all innocence, but his sort of more genuineness, I guess, that maybe would impact Oz? So were you ever waiting for that, or are you just smarter about these
I
shows?
wouldn't say I'm smarter, but I did. I did. So I think the show does something interesting by pairing Oz with Victor right from the beginning, and I feel like it's intention. It's obviously intentional, but it kind of to me mirrors like the Batman Robin vibe, where you
Mm-hmm.
have this older
Mm-hmm.
character who takes a younger character under his wing. In the case of Penguin, that's not. I didn't mean to do a Penguin pun, but there it is.
Look at you! I knew what you
Yep.
did there.
He, so you have this older character who takes the younger character under his wing, brings him up and teaches him, and then they're gonna, in the case of Batman and Robin, they fight crime together. In the case of Penguin and Vic, they could have run the crime empire together. So I think that was kind of an intentional choice, and maybe they were trying to kind of mimic or echo the Batman Robin thing. But
Mm.
right from the beginning, I was suspicious, and I will actually take credit because I said, like, I think in the first podcast after 3 episodes, I said Vic's dead. Like, Penguin's going to kill him in the end.
Yeah.
And my reasoning was wrong, though. So I was right, but my reasoning was wrong. I said that in order to get what he wants, in order to become the villain, he has to do something truly villainous by the end. And at this
Yeah.
point, he'd been too sympathetic. To your point, the first episode where he talks about that old world gangster, you can just see he wants to be loved like that character. And you can kind of for me, I was looking at it as this guy who doesn't look, he's not attractive, he's got this deformity. Everyone thinks poorly of him, and so of course to be loved, it's going to fill the void in him, and it's going to, like, that's his desire, that's his inner need, is to be loved and to be respected. And that's what I thought his journey was going to be, but ultimately it turns out, like, no, he's just messed up, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But in the case of Victor, yeah, I thought he was going to have to kill Victor to become the villain. Like, he couldn't take this sweet boy into the next life. Like, that was going to be the price he had to pay to become the Penguin. And so the fact that I was right, but that the motives were wrong, was the biggest surprise to me, because it's not that he had to become the Penguin by killing the character, by killing Vic. He already was the Penguin. We just didn't recognize it yet. So he already was this character capable of doing the most dastardly things. And this boy who has come to look at him basically as an adopted father confesses his love to him, and then
Mm-hmm.
he kills him. like that was even more horrific than I thought it would be. I thought he was gonna, with tears in his eyes, kill Vic because he recognized that Vic was too pure for him and was gonna drag him down. And
Mm-hmm.
it turns out that he, like, I don't know, he makes a remark about when he kills Victor. He says something like I don't remember what he says exactly, but it's essentially is saying, like, family is your great weakness and your great strength, and so that he's going to derive strength from killing Vic. Basically, that's going to
Yeah.
make him more villainous, more capable of doing even darker things. And I mean, that was shocking, and it still is. Just talking about right now, it still is shocking.
Yeah, he squishes him like a bug.
Yeah, and
He
then
really
it's
does.
and
It's
then even worse, he goes through his wallet afterwards, takes his money, and then he takes his driver's license, and I think for a minute he's going to keep it as a memento or something to remember him by. He just throws it in the water and walks away. So, like, in the end, Vic really meant nothing to him. He
mm-hmm.
was just a pawn in his empire, and I think that's really who this character is. Like, we can talk about his mom, but like, I don't think in the end anyone really means anything to this guy. He's just to your point, he's has some real mental health issues, and he like I don't even know how to. He's so inhuman in his reactions and responses. I don't even know how to respond to some of the things he does, other than just like abject horror. Like, how could you do that?
Mm-hmm. Well, and it makes me wonder too, like, is power, is like just the consolidation of power, is that really just the end game? Like, there has to be more, I think, for him.
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, what is his end game? Um, the way the show progresses, it seems like he says he's doing all this for his mom. He wants to get her in a penthouse
Mm-hmm.
because this is so they show the two of them watching these old time movies, and there's all this decadence and stuff, and they're both captured by this life, and
Mm-hmm.
he's promises to her that he's going to get her out of this, and like she plays a huge role in enabling his madness because um well, she's aware of it and she lets it go on.
Yeah.
But she also is like, when are you going to get me out of this? So she's like, she's pushing him to do even darker things. Like she chooses to, she knows her son is evil, like capital E evil,
Mm.
and she chooses to just, that's the horse she's gonna bet on at this point. Like, so
Well,
the
and
two
so,
of them, go
yeah.
ahead.
No, I'm sorry, finish your thought.
No, so I was just gonna say, so for me, for a long time I thought his arc was just about getting a piece of that life. Like he wants to be seen and respected. He wants to be that old world gangster. I guess I still go back to, I think he still wants to be beloved and respected. I think
Mm-hmm.
that is what's missing in his life. That's his kind of his mortal wound from childhood.
Mm.
Whether or not like his life is going to fill that hole, I think it's probably not. He's just going to want more and more and more,
Mm-hmm.
and that's going to fuel his journey.
Yeah, I was gonna say with mom, like, she has the opportunity to
Yeah.
stop it,
Yep.
and she doesn't. So that makes her culpable in
Yep.
the rest of his evolution. But she also, because she has this conversation with I think it's that gangster, right? That he's reminiscing
Yes.
about.
Yep.
Yeah. And the gangster basically is like, here's what you do. You know what I mean? Like, you can either harness his
Yep.
depravity, or you snuff it out. So she decides to harness it. But I wondered, after knowing more of the full story of their family, is if she is weirdly punishing herself. Like, does she blame herself for not going through with it? Because if she had let him kill Oswald, then she would have nothing,
Yep.
because the other kids were dead already, right? So she would have nothing and nobody. And so instead she makes this other choice. And it's really complicated because you look at it and you're like, well, she's a mom. Like, she is a mom, and they show her really like she loves her kids, and she
Mm-hmm.
does the best she can by them, and all of her kids. I thought to myself too, when we first meet Oswald, I was like, I wonder if this was he was bullied and he was like,
Yes.
nobody, like, and then we find out like really the opposite. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
um so she loves all her kids and everything, and yet she makes this choice not not to kill them. So right, you're like, well, that's a mother's choice. I mean, how can you
Yeah.
live with harming your own child knowingly, even as evil as he is and everything? So I wonder too about like her level of like, what is she playing at with this? Like, is she is she pushing him to see how far he'll ultimately go? Is she doing stuff that so she'll get what she wants, like
Mm-hmm.
a better life and all of that stuff, so then she can at least justify it, to say at least it was all for something? Because at the end she snaps. Like, in the end, it's all too much for her psychologically, and she essentially, like, she snaps. Um but she seems like she is regretting not having him killed. Like,
Yeah.
but yet, so then it gets back to what I was saying. Like, are monsters born
Yeah.
or made?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's the answer from this show is both, because Oswald was born that way. Like, he was born with the capability to lock his brothers in this, this water, I don't know exactly what it is, underground sewer thing, and just walk away knowing that they're going to drown.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was capable of doing that. Like, nobody made him do that. We didn't see anything in his past that would suggest something in his environment would turn him into someone capable of that. So the answer partly is it's the nature nurture thing. Like, he was just born evil. Like, that's the answer. Is he wanted mom all to himself. He didn't like sharing her with his brothers, and so he elected to let his brothers die. He killed them. Like that, he killed them. Like, that's his villain origin story. Was back when he was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, Sophia, she was innocent. She was someone who wanted to do good in the world, who just happened to be born into a bad family.
Mm-hmm.
And because her family are so evil and so bad, they made her into a monster, because they all turned their back on her and co-signed on with Carmine's lie that she was the one who killed all these women, and put her away for 10 freaking years. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, she's a little crazy when she gets out, because not only has she been betrayed by everyone she loved except for her brother, but also these 10 years they've been rooting around in her brain and giving her drugs and stuff. And so you kind of understand when she comes out why she seems a little cracked and why she eats her salad with bare hands, because yeah, like, this girl has had to deal with some stuff. So I think for me the answer is, yeah, it's some people really are born evil, and that's just something that unfortunately happens. But at the same time, I think more often what happens is that circumstances and people turn people into someone capable of evil. Because even Sophia, when she comes out of Arkham, she doesn't immediately snap and kill everybody. She
Mm-hmm.
tries to reintegrate with her family, but
Mm-hmm.
they push her away. They disrespect her. Um, they're she only gets to the point of killing them when she has no other choice, because they're basically trying to shove her off and send her to Italy and just be done with her. And when really she should be the one running the crime family at that point. So I think it's for me it's a little both, which makes the show interesting, because it's and in some ways it actually makes, I mean, so for me Sophia is probably the most sympathetic character on the show, because all these things happen to her, and meanwhile I I feel sympathetic towards Oz to a degree, but at the same time it's because he was like this physical embodiment of evil. You kind of don't as much, because nothing there's he can't redeem himself. There's no coming back from the things he's done.
No, and
um
I think that if the mom had institutionalized him instead,
sure.
not, you know, I think he would have ended up exactly where he is, but
Hmm.
even more ferocious, because like
Yeah.
we see Arkham is a madness factory,
Yeah.
and it's not a real representation of
Yeah.
good mental health practices and care.
Yeah, people are not rehabilitated there.
No, in fact, they're like you said, like they're cracked open, and their monstrosity is actually fed in a
Yeah.
way. I mean, some of it is by the corrupt physicians and psychiatrists. At least we meet at least one. And then the other part of it, and it's another question about survival, right? Like that's a through line of like, is Oz doing what he has to do to survive? Sophia did what she had to do to survive in Arkham, under the whole rubric of what Arkham is and what was happening to her. And then she gets out and she still has to survive, And so the motivation too is like, this is all they know is surviving
Hmm.
when Sophia's maybe slightly different because her family is a powerful family, but the women have no power in that family. They have to
Exactly.
take it, or yeah. So that whole notion of like of doing what you have to do, and not that it excuses it, but does it allow us to be more sympathetic to these characters because we see them in that framework also, where they're in this brutalist society, lawless or whatever. And so it's like kill or be killed, be at the top or be crushed underneath, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so you kind of say like, well, yeah, um he is a monster, but he's a survivor. That's what he knows,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, it is interesting too, like what is going on in Gotham? Like, what is the
Mm.
fact that Arkham it's supposed to be this mental hospital where people get rehabilitated and they come out even worse.
Yeah,
And the
not
hero
as
of God,
controversial.
exactly. And the hero of Gotham is a guy with deep traumatic issues who maybe, in a better city would maybe go to a psychiatric hospital, but instead
Mhm.
he takes out all his issues by beating up people. It does make you just wonder about like what is going on with Gotham, and what is Gotham itself like. So is there something bigger that Gotham is saying about modern society, or is it just that Gotham is just like, yeah, it's just madness, like it's this is just a weird kind of a funhouse mirror reflection of like New York City at,
Mhm.
at its craziest. I don't
Mhm.
know. I don't know. I feel like there's maybe something interesting there that I'm not going to pull out in a podcast, but I do think it is interesting that everyone in Gotham is freaking crazy on some level, basically.
Well, and corrupt, I
Yes.
think that
Yep.
right now we haven't seen too much of the white collar corruption, except
Mm-hmm.
nearer to the end when Oz has that meeting with the judge or whatever to get
Yeah.
Sophia recommitted or whatever.
Yep.
And it's suggested that different things are different. Basically, everybody's in Falcone's pocket
Mm-hmm.
or in Maroni, one of the families. So, but there's I think there's just sort of like the perception of the white collar criminal as just being like above all the dirty stuff, like
Yeah.
the bloodlust stuff.
Yeah.
And then you have the crime families that are also running Gotham, and they're corrupt like in a different way. So it's this like just sludge of corruption,
Yeah.
and one of the things we talked a little bit about on the side is just also like the visual look of the show. How it's just everything is dirty and
Mm-hmm.
dark and underground um and just, I mean, even Sophia's compound and stuff is not pleasant. It's very like gothic seeming. So there's this sense, I think, that Gotham is just this enclave of like such darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why it will be interesting going into a season 2 to have Batman somehow make an appearance or make, I mean, I don't know, they can't shift the show too much to make it a Batman show.
Yeah.
But the end of the season, they definitely signify, like literally the bat signal is in the sky, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Um so it'll be interesting to see how they start to untangle that. And I think in the second season, I think we do have to see more of that, the white collar kind of corruption. And Oz kind of positions himself as to playing in both worlds, because at the end he's got the beautiful penthouse, he's in the tuxedo, like he's very cleaned up.
Mm-hmm.
um and he's got his little weird entourage. Super dysfunctional family. Super.
Super. Yeah.
Like I would not go to Thanksgiving at Oswald's house. That would be no,
Yeah.
no. So I think he thinks he's like that. It's like what you were saying before about how much of it is the performance of like being the gentleman, being, I think he thinks he's an anti-hero
Yeah,
almost.
yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the reason we initially kind of glom onto him is because he presents himself as the working man. He talks about guys like
Mhm.
us, right? And to your point, when we see Gotham, like it's run down, Crown Point is destroyed basically, and then we go upstate and you got these palatial mansions, and so there's this very real dichotomy of like the one percenters versus the rest of us. And in a
Mhm.
way, Oz presents himself as, you could look at it as he's presenting himself as like a hero of the people, like, and that's what he is trying to put out to Vic, is like, hey, guys like us, we got to seize what we can. And he talks about the fact that life isn't fair. And he even, there's an even a great, I think it's in the first episode, there's this great moment where Vic is driving him through Gotham, through the wreckage, and Oz is just like, he can't believe what he's seeing, and he talks about that madman, like the Riddler, who blew up the city and stuff. And so it
Mhm.
almost feels like, yeah, like he's saying like, I'm bad, but that guy's even worse,
I
right?
know, and you're
That's
like, all right, pot, here's the
exactly.
kettle.
But at that point in the show, you think like, okay, yeah, this guy he's not a crazy one. Like he is, like he's going to do bad things, but like I'm going to like this guy. But then, I think part of his journey is he's going to become someone who is capable of wreaking mass destruction to get whatever it is he wants. And he's not going to be this working guy that was just grasping. Because I think
Mhm.
ultimately this show is about, power and who has it, and both Oz and Sophia are on the outside looking in, and this show is kind of about them trying to take what they think is theirs.
Mhm.
And with Oz at the top at the very end, like, once, like you said earlier, once he has all this power, like, what's next? What does he do next? Is he going to be content just ruling the drug empire or whatever? And my sense is no, because I think, again, he's got this void inside of him that he's going to have to fill somehow. And I don't know that having his girlfriend wear his mom's clothes so that he can dance with her is going to fill that void.
It's filling a textbook of a
Yeah,
psychology textbook, that's for sure.
yeah, that was super disturbing. I mean,
That was I was it made everything so much worse,
it
and
did.
right? And again, like, that's what I think is the genius of the show, because it's not ending in a bloodbath. And
Yes.
even, like, when he kills Vic, he strangles him, right?
Yeah, he
Smothers him.
does. Yeah.
And that's, so it's not like a bullet to the head, which, we see in lots of gangster or lots of just violent ends.
Mm-hmm.
Um and that's like worse. It's intimate. You have to put your hands on. I mean, I've never done it. I've never done it. I swear to God, I've never done it. I watched enough mob type things
Sure.
to know what it's like. But it's true, right? I mean,
Yeah.
well, and that's why they say, they used to say, I think, some theories about like women who commit murder, it would be like strangling or poison or something like that, because it's more intimate and it's less like messy,
Mm-hmm.
basically.
Okay.
Um, so yay, gender.
I'll take your word for that.
And that is feminism, boys and girls. No. So but so that made that moment, like you said, like triply horrifying. And though, so then to end it where it's like, yeah, this scene of domestic intimacy, it's the weird son mom, but yet like girlfriend boyfriend, like there's all those roles are just sort of like smushed together in a really uncomfortable Freudian horrible way.
Yeah.
um that made it so much more creepy and disturbing. And that's what I mean, like with the Sopranos, there was like just enough of like that psychological doubt of like, is Tony really, just sort of using Melfi all along to kind of to be a better psychopath,
Mm-hmm.
and and like a lot of the dynamics and stuff left you kind of like, and just feeling unsettled. But Penguin just like, I just feel like it it moved it poured like Red Bull all over that and injected it with steroids and was like, we're going to take that ick factor to such like a highly disturbing degree. That's what it is.
Yes.
Like, it didn't unsettle me so much as it just left me so disturbed. Um, so yeah, so I wonder too, like, what is his motivation now? What are sort of the power dynamics? And he claims too that, like, yeah, family brings you down, but like, but he has family. His mother is a liability still, even though she's basically in a kind of catatonic state. He has already proven that he would do anything for her still. And the girlfriend is a little bit of an outlier now. I thought she was not going to make it through the season, but she has.
Yeah. Yeah, she has
So,
a great her scene with Sophia where it seems like Sophia's going to kill her. That was a
yeah.
great scene. Like I thought she was short for this world too. Um
Yeah.
yeah, I do think there's something interesting too about his relationship with his mom because if you remember, so she has dementia and she knows that she has a moment of clarity and begs Oz, basically makes him promise that when
Mm,
if it gets to a point where she's basically catatonic, she doesn't want to be, uh, she doesn't want to be like that, and she makes him promise to kill her if it comes to that.
mhm,
The fact that she does have that stroke that debilitates her, and then he elects to just keep her on a ventilator indefinitely. Um, that to me was that's not love. Yeah, he doesn't. I think maybe he thinks he loves his mom. I feel like it's more like he has to. He wants his mom in his life for himself, and
mhm,
that means he's putting his needs above her own. And clearly, she like some part of her is still in there because you see the single tear come down her face when she's in the ventilator on top of the penthouse, what she always wanted, right? The view and everything.
mm,
And but it's not what she wanted, and in the end Oz betrays her too, doesn't do what she wants him to do because
mhm,
he is a freaking psychopath. Like he puts his he doesn't I don't think he doesn't appreciate or recognize the feelings of others. He does what he wants for himself, and even his beloved mom, who all the way up through most of the show he was saying he was doing this for her, like that really was maybe what he maybe even believed it himself, and that's what he was always saying. But in the end, none of it's for her, and she's just another piece of his empire.
mhm,
um and it's all kinds of messed up. But I think, if you talk about the villainous things that he did on this show, there's a long list. Obviously, the things he did to Sophia previously, and then the things he does to her on the show, and then the ending for Vic and his mom. I don't know. I try and think about like which is the most villainous, like which is the biggest betrayal. In some ways it feels like it's Vic because he's innocent. He just fell into this life, and he made the mistake of basically confessing his feelings, and Oz kills him for it. And
mm,
it's crazy because when that scene happened, he Vic calls him family, and
mhm.
Oz immediately says, "Ah, fuck." And as soon as he said that, I knew he was going to kill him because I knew he recognized that the kid was a liability at that point, and not something he could have around or abide. And so it's crazy because it's not like he appreciates that Vic feels that way towards him. It's not that he feels the same way toward Vic. He saw Vic as this asset, this person that was going to help him grow his empire, and now he realizes that no, that's not going to happen because I got to kill him. And that was that was that was the hard one for me. I think of all the things that happened, I think Vic had the most tragic end. But
Mm.
what did you think? Which of all the various ends were the most tragic in your
I
opinion?
think, yeah, I think Vic, absolutely. It surprised me. Like, I mean, as he was saying it, yeah, I was like, oh no, 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 no,
Stop
no, no,
talking. Stop
no.
talking.
Yeah, like oh, stupid Vic. Haven't you
Yep.
seen any of these movies? Clearly not.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, that it coupled with the way he did it, and like you said before, I had forgotten that, yeah, he just rolls them. He takes his stuff and he just is like he's just garbage.
Yeah.
This
Yep.
kid who like invested, and they have that conversation in the restaurant where Vic
Yes.
does. Yeah, Vic says like, and Oswald is like, I bet your dad would be proud of you, and like he really fucking, excuse me, lays it on. He lays it
Yeah.
on so thick that that makes it a million times worse, a
Yep.
million times, because in that moment, that's when I felt like, not that anything was cemented, but like I said, I could see a a narrative universe where Vic continues on, but then at some point Vic he has to betray him, or has to, so at some point they become at odds in
Hmm.
some way, definitely. But I was really eager to see what that looked like, and all of that. So yes, Vic, that broke my heart, because he also stayed really like youthful throughout
Yeah.
series, like I don't really know what the exact time frame of the series is, like a couple
How
of
many weeks or
months,
something?
or yeah,
Yeah.
weeks. It must be, right? Because you know he, even though he's like he's working for Oz and he's making a little money, like besides buying himself a pair of nice new sneakers, he doesn't, like,
Hmm.
he doesn't get his hair cut, he doesn't get a suit, you know what I mean? So that's even more cruel, on I think on the writer's side, and like on the creator's side, in a smart way. Like they made him seem so much still like a little boy, a young boy,
Hmm.
that yeah, that when Oz kills him, it's almost like he's physically killing his siblings again, but
Yeah.
like physically, in that, like I said, in that real like intimate way where he just like holds them, and it's like a hug. It's just awful. It's awful. It might be the most disturbing snuff out that I've seen in a show like this in a long, long time. I don't know. Do you agree? Like,
Oh, geez. I'm
yeah,
just trying to think of like deaths that shook me. Um,
yeah.
this
Oh,
is
there you go. That's a,
this is
that's a high five for you.
this is yeah, exactly. The top 5 deaths that disturb me to this day. There's this one that never fails to is stuck in my head for years, and even just conjuring the image, I feel like so awful. Have you ever seen Burn After Reading?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So there's the scene. So Brad Pitt plays this really dopey exercise instructor, and the plot involves basically John Malkovich was like a CIA guy or whatever, and he wrote his memoirs, and they end up in the hands of some idiots who basically try to extort Malkovich of money because they think there's like state secrets in it, right?
Right. And it's a Coen
So
Brothers
it's a
movie,
Coen
right?
Brothers, yeah, yeah,
Coen
yeah. So
Brothers.
there's
Yeah.
a scene where and George Clooney's in it too, and he's some kind of like CIA assassin or something. It's been a while since I've seen it, but anyway,
Mhm.
there's a scene where Brad Pitt sneaks into this house. And I don't remember what he's looking for exactly, but he hears Clooney come in, so he hides in a closet, and Clooney's looking around, and he opens the closet door and sees Brad Pitt standing there, and he shoots him in the face. But right before it happens, Pitt kind of like smile winces because he's just this dopey like guy who is way out of his element, and it just it breaks my heart because he's a simpleton, and
Mm,
he's just about to die, and like the look on his face, it's like just seared in my head as one of
mm,
those like those moments that I don't know, you don't forget. But that's the one that first comes to my mind when you talk about like really brutal deaths for some reason. But I think the Vic one is a lot harder because he looked at this guy as his dad. They have all these beautiful moments. Like there's a
oh,
scene where in the nightclub, episode 3, where they're selling all this drugs, and then Vic has a PTSD flashback related to when the bombs went off. So he goes into the bathroom to kind of collect himself, and Oz comes in there, and he's all celebrating like, oh, this things are going well, and then he sees Vic's phone and sees that Vic was planning on or was considering at least leaving with his girlfriend. And Oz is so, he actually seems hurt by this, by the betrayal. And again, this is how he makes you feel sympathetic, because he thought they had this relationship, and now he's hurt that he would betray him. And he's actually seems more hurt by the fact that he was afraid to talk to Oz about it, that he felt like he couldn't, that Oz had a gun to his head, like he would kill him if he talked to him about it, which in reality he maybe would have. but
Yeah.
he's so good at playing on his emotions and our emotions in that scene, that it's just it feels genuine. It feels like he really had this good mentor-mentee relationship with this kid, and ultimately that's why Vic sticks around, I think, is because he feels it too. And then of course, things shake out how they shake out, but it's all these scenes, and the way that they'll stand there and talk. And like when Vic kills Squibb, like his first person he's ever killed in his life, he kills Squibb to protect basically Oz and their drug business. And then Oz like has this real heart to heart with him. He puts his hand on the back of his neck and really connects with him, right? And it's just it's crazy. Like, how can someone who feels nothing be so good at like empathizing with people? And it's crazy, because he is a cold SOB, and he's willing to do anything. But at the same time, like, this journey with Victor all along, they have all these great moments where you feel the love, like in the scene, and then it's just he snaps his fingers and it's gone, dead. He said the F word, and you can't say that to Oz, apparently. Like, family it's the worst thing. So
it's a big no-no.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I wonder if Oz is like, is he wanting what he wants, like including supposedly like sort of the family and to be loved and all of that, but when it comes down to it, he will do what he has to do to survive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does he have a code? Do we know? I feel like in the beginning I would say, okay, this is his code. But then like very shortly after that, I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point. I think because if you think about those first few episodes, he endears us by talking about air fresheners, or the fact that he's listening to 9 to 5. He's got a 9 to 5 CD in his car. Like, those little things endear us, because it's like, oh my gosh, this guy is actually a human being, and like he's kind of goofy, and I don't know. Part of me is like, well, this is the journey to the dark side. He's losing he's losing touch with that person as he goes. But then you have that flashback to when he killed his brothers. It's like, no, this is actually who he's always been. And it's that's just what's so crazy about this show, though, is you can just go around with it and just think about it, and at the end of the day, he is just a villainous character that he's just really good at manipulating everyone, including us, the audience, into like feeling something for him, even though there's like literally nothing there.
Well, so I wonder if in a season 2, if we're going to get more backstory on those intervening years. Because, one of the points of reference that we see, and then he tells Sophia a slightly altered story, is after his brothers died and his mom, fell into deep depression and wouldn't get out of bed. And then he's like, and then just one day she was like, Oswald, put on your suit, we're going out. When he tells Sophia this, he says, I like to think it's because of me. And, gee, I don't know how she survived, all this stuff. And that comes early on. That's like episode 2, I think, 2 or 3. And you're on board, you're like, I bet, yeah, she turned it around because you've already saw their dynamic. She loves him, or, whatever. And then, of course, you find out that is a lot of revisionist history. So I hope we get to see his, how he gets involved in the Falcone family. And like, there's a lot more, real estate in there that we have yet to see and explore. And I don't think it's going to give us I don't think it's going to make us sleep better at night. But I think it is going to add more depth to his psychology and his choices and his motivations. And then I also wonder, I don't know if you have any like predictions or stuff for season 2 or hopes or whatever, but I'm like we have the suggestion of Batman is out there. The
Yep.
bat is out. um Fine, whatever. He always is. He's not going to be like, "Oh no, I'm watching Dateline. I can't make it." He's going to come. We also have Catwoman. Selena
Mm-hmm.
makes a sort of an appearance related to Sophia. So my question is like, who's coming for the Penguin? Like what? Who's assuming that season 2 puts him either at the top or very near the top, or like very much the
Yeah.
kingpin? Who's gunning for him? Who's coming for him?
Yeah, I mean he left a lot of bodies in his wake, so he definitely has his share of villains, and I do like that that the episode or the season ends with them putting the bat signal in the sky, because I
Mm,
feel like A, it reminds everyone that hey, this happens in the Batman universe, and B, it almost feels like just like a glimmer of hope. Like you just saw this crazy stuff go down and things got really dark, but like there's still a hero around. So I think that was
mm,
kind of cool.
mm,
I don't know how the story's going to continue. I think obviously, so Oz was initially introduced in the Batman movie that came out in 2022, and then this whole series was just about making him into the Penguin. So like, where does that continue? Does it continue in the second Batman movie? Is there going to be a
mhm,
season 2? I have heard that both the showrunner and Colin Farrell want to do a season 2, so I'm hoping it happens.
mhm,
Um, if there is a season 2 of the show, I don't want to see the Batman on it, honestly. Like I
mhm,
prefer just kind of the low level kind of gritty stuff versus kind of the keep the Batman stuff in the movies. Like I kind of like one of the things I like so much about this show is it's given us these 8 hours to invest with these characters and get to know them deeper than you could ever get in a film or even a trilogy of films. So I hope that if we get a season 2, it's more on this storyline or things related to that. To your
mhm.
point, I hope Sophia comes gunning. That's what I want to see.
Yes.
That's what I want, because um her arc in this show, it's interesting how it kind of mirrors but also diverts from Oswald's, because Oswald's arc is this guy's interesting, he's kind of funny, he's very sympathetic, I kind of like him, and then you're like, oh crap, like you fall off the cliff at one point and then you kind of are still liking him. Sophia enters the story and she's like, as soon as she walks in the room, you can tell she's crazy. Like this girl's nuts, and like the scenes she has with Oswald are so tense because you can just tell she's like 30 degrees off kilter. And then as
Mhm,
you get to know her story, you see that she actually had these grave injustices done to her, and um she is due revenge. And so I hope that she re-enters the story, and that I personally would rather see her take down Oswald than Batman. I don't think we'll get that, but I think that would be sweet. And part of what I liked so much about this show is how it kept us guessing, how it played with perspective,
mhm,
and it made us think things that weren't true, or maybe things ended up being true for different reasons. And it felt like every episode you learned something new about these characters that just changed how you thought of them, and it was just masterfully done. I'm not a huge fan of like flashback episodes, but
mhm,
the two flashbacks we got with Sophia and then young Oswald, I guess even with the mom too, like those filled in crucial blocks of information that like changed everything.
mhm,
So yeah, I absolutely love the show. I do hope we get a season 2, and like I
mhm.
said, it would be great if it was like Oswald versus Sophia Part 2. Like that would be awesome.
Yeah, and I was very happy that they just contained her and didn't kill her, you know?
Yes,
I thought that
yes,
was so smart, and it felt satisfying, you know? And when we see her at the very end in Arkham,
yep,
she's subdued, but this is a world that she knows very well. I mean, she spent 10 years there.
yep,
So she knows how to play Arkham. So she's down, but she's not out.
yeah,
And she gets that letter from, they say like, oh, they're saying this is your half sister, Selena. who in the universe is the Catwoman.
Yep.
So yeah, I feel like she's gonna wield some power from inside, maybe, or like we have definitely not seen the last of Sophia, and I could not be more happy. I thought her character was absolutely masterful, and I loved. I know this makes me sound psychotic, but I loved the way she killed her family. Or, I mean, how well, they were all like equally depraved,
Yep.
and like that was like a sort of masterstroke of revenge,
Yeah.
and yeah, like what I was saying about earlier, like that's very gendered kill of like poison,
Sure.
essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she saves an innocent. So like she sort of not redeems herself, but she shows herself to be not entirely heartless. But just the way that played out, I thought was so elegant. I mean, I'm a big
Mm-hmm.
fan of those kind of like dating back to like to The Godfather, when near the
Yeah.
end when they have those sweeping kills. I
Yep.
mean,
Yep.
again, I am a very gentle person. I swear to God. But because I think there's something that's very like just elegant in the way I love the way a plan unfolds. I'm very
Mm-hmm.
much like give me a really well done, kind of like a money heist, or
Sure.
you know,
Ocean's 11, like one of
Ocean's
those.
11.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love seeing a master plan unfold. So I love that, and I love that like that was so smart. She is highly intelligent,
Yeah.
and Oz is very savvy, and obviously very like intelligent in his own way of psychosis. But Sophia has other kinds of intelligence. And so I think that I agree. I think we are going to definitely see a clash between them again at some point.
Yeah.
And I hope that isn't the last, even. You know what I mean? I hope it's not, it's one battle and a war, because she's really good. That character is really good. And the actress who plays her, like, who knew that Ted Mosby's wife could be
Yes. Yes. Yeah, she's so good. She's so
she's
good
so
at playing crazy. It's funny because they have these at the end of every episode they have the like inside the episode, right? Where they'll like kind
good.
of talk about the making of the episode. And so you'll see Sophia like being crazy in the episode, and then afterward, the actress is sitting there and just talking, and she's so normal because, of course, she's just she's a normal person. But the dichotomy is it's so marked because it just goes to show you how well she is at kind of acting like a person who's been locked up for 10 years and is slowly losing their mind.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love Sophia. That was the character arc that probably surprised me the most, was
Mhm.
seeing what happens with her, and also just um I like the moment where she has her niece. So she goes to visit her niece, and they have that moment where she basically confesses that, like, yeah, she killed those people because they were
Mhm.
doing bad things. They did bad things to me too, and now you're safe. So she's yeah,
Which
really.
that's not at all going to come back to haunt her or anyone, right? This
I
poor little kid is right, is like, that made me wonder, like, well, what are the seeds of that, that they're planting there with that kid character? She, you
yeah.
know, is
Yep.
now burdened with this knowledge of, and yeah,
Yep. Yep. I agree.
tremendous.
I know it's so good. But anything else that you had?
I don't think so. I mean, we really talked it out, I mean, the other stuff that I loved, like I said, was just even like the set dressing, the if you're watching it, watch the end credits and stuff, because the visual, like the visual aesthetics of the end credits are so cool, with the way
Mm-hmm.
they just the graphics they do. And I love the weird modern songs that get stuck in there, 9 to 5. And another one was The Promise. That's also it's like in the CD player or something, when and
Mm-hmm.
he's also either like shooting someone, or like there's something going on underneath it.
Yep.
But it's like that reminds me of the end of Napoleon Dynamite. That's a song that plays at the end of Napoleon Dynamite when they're playing tetherball. Napoleon and anyway, that's a conversation for another day about the music. But yeah, like there's a lot of like just really very smart, thoughtful touches to the show that it is worth. It's like a prestige drama kind of one of those, one of these shows that now we've come to sort of look for and expect from like HBO or some other of these, Apple or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably the craziest part is that we're using the word prestige TV, prestige drama to describe the show. Like, what a world. How the wonders of this future we live in.
Yeah, for so long, like TV was this really like much lesser than film, medium.
Yeah.
It was such a like a junk drawer and
Yeah.
a bit of a dumpster for many decades. Many, people just sort of were right. Like my dad used to call it like the boob tube or whatever. And it was just like, the idea was like you would watch it and gain nothing. But like programming, storytelling and stuff for TV has gotten just so sophisticated and inventive, exciting. Yeah, it's really awesome. I think television is like in its own golden era, I think, at this point.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's why we're talking about it.
And it's all because of the penguin. I mean, everything else before that, trash, then the penguin. Just kidding.
Sheila, thanks for joining me. If there is a second season, we'll have to reconvene to compare
on
notes.
It. Yeah, whether people want it or not, we're going to be talking about it. That's for sure.
You can find Sheila's Substack at Stay Curious on Substack.com. She has lots of photography and writing on pop culture and just some beautiful observations on life that you can check out. So I would recommend following her there. Sheila, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Always, Eric. It's a total delight. And I look forward to the next one.
Yeah, me too.
I'm going to say it. I'm saying it. Boom. It's out there.
It's done. Thanks, Sheila.
Thanks, Eric.